Hello everybody, welcome to the 4th episode of Bernie Baker Bakes. So I made apple pie and I went back to melskitchencafe.com and found her blue ribbon apple pie recipe and also the perfect pie crust recipe. And I couldn't help myself, Two Brothers little apple cider, just to add a little extra. I started with the apples because I didn't want to start with the crust because the crust scared me. And 2.5 pounds of Granny Smiths and 2.5 pounds of Kanzi apples. This is about 1.13 kilograms of each. One tart apple and one sort of sweeter apple. Okay, so I've got my Granny Smith apples and my Kanzi apples, and I'm going to use my apple peeler core slicer thing. Found out about these when Sky was back in kinder. The kinder teachers would use these on their apples. Fail. That's totally not even, bloody hell. Try that. I mean, what? I noticed the apples started to go brown pretty quickly, so I thought, why not marinate them in little apple cider by Two Brothers, of course. So this is the second bottle. How do you like them apples? Then I tossed the apples with castor sugar, brown sugar, lemon zest, salt, and cinnamon. Need a 1/2 cup sugar. I'm gonna try the spoon and scoop method. Yeah, that's a lot better. Next, I need a 1/4 cup of packed light brown sugar. No, still spilled. And need a 1/2 teaspoon of fresh grated lemon zest. Overflowing 1/2 teaspoon of fresh lemon zest. Then we need a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Then we need 1/8 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. Remember what happened last time when I tried to put the spoon in the cinnamon. The smallest one I've got is a 1/4 teaspoon, so I'm gonna try that. Hopefully it won't get jammed in there. What's a little extra cinnamon among friends? I'm gonna stir this together first. Now that that's all nicely mixed together, I'm gonna add that to my apples, which are already in my big large pot or Dutch oven. You just wanna toss that around, coating the apples. Okay, that's nicely combined, so I'm gonna bring that over to the stove and cook over medium heat just for a little bit. Yep, so I cooked the apples just to get them tender when poked with a fork. Rightio, I'm at the oven and I'm gonna turn it on to medium heat. That went well. Cook over medium heat, stirring frequently until the apples are tender when poked with a fork, but not mushy, about 10 to 12 minutes. Don't overcook in this step. The apples will finish cooking and softening up in the oven. Right. I don't know about you, but that looks like enough apples for about 3 pies. It's been about 10 minutes and the apples are tender. After cooking the apples, Then I just transferred them to a large baking pan and let them cool for at least 30 minutes. I still think that's enough for 3 pies. Once the apples were cooled, I drained them. I've drained the apples and reserved the juice from the apples and put a 1/4 cup of that in a little bowl with 2 teaspoons of fresh squeezed lemon juice. Then I thought I might as well get started on the crust. I really thought I was going to wait until tomorrow to start the pie crust because it fills me with dread and anxiety. I lightly whisked, yep, I brought out the whisk again. I lightly whisked 3 cups of plain flour with a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 4 teaspoons of caster sugar. Right, I just whisked that first. Yeah, I know. Then 20 tablespoons or 10 ounces or 285 grams thereabouts of butter. So this was frozen butter, and I used the large holes of a grater and I grated that I grated that butter into the flour mixture. Holy cannolis, that takes commitment. Then with a fork, I should have used a metal fork straight away, but for some reason I grabbed this wooden takeaway fork that I had in the drawer. I don't know why. All right, now we're gonna toss the butter and flour mixture with a fork just until it's coated with the flour, until the butter is coated with the flour. Then we add a cup of sour cream, not low fat, not light sour cream, normal sour cream, full fat. Pressing the fork down into the mixture. Probably should have used a metal fork. And there's where I switched the fork to a metal fork. But don't overwork the dough. And after you kind of done what you can do with the fork, you just get your hands and you pull the dough together with your hands quickly and firmly so the butter pieces don't melt. It should start to form a cohesive ball. Some of you might be wondering, where's the ice water? Get it into a ball. This recipe doesn't use ice water. If you need to add a bit more sour cream, if it's too dry, just add a tiny bit at a time, like a little teaspoon at a time. The mixture should not be overly wet or sticky. At the same time, it shouldn't be falling apart either. It should hold together when pressed. A cohesive ball. Then, at this point, the dough can be rolled out on a lightly floured counter. I've split it into 2 balls. I'm gonna roll it out into a disc and roll it out to as thin of a crust as quickly as possible. Then you want to roll the dough over the rolling pin and then unroll it onto the pie plate. I mean, did I tell you I was going for a rustic? After that, you want to trim the edges around to about 1/4 of an inch. I covered it with plastic wrap and I refrigerated for 30 minutes. At this stage, I've also preheated my oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit or 220 Celsius. Right, back to the apples. It's the moment we've all been waiting for. Once the pie crust was chilled for long enough, I put the apples I don't know, is that enough apples? You know what, there's not that many left. I'm just gonna frickin' add them all. Then drizzle with this juice, lemon juice mixture. Done. After that, I put the top of the pie crust, the top crust on top. Okay, this looks a little wonky. Rustic, right? And trimmed around the edges. And then it says to kind of tuck the top edge underneath the bottom edge all the way around. And then you crimp around the sides. Crimp, crimp, crimp. Make it look like a pie crust. Crimp, crimp, crimp. Okay, after that you cut 4 gashes in the top of the pie with sharp paring knife. Let's do a gash here. And a gash here. Here and here. You take that lightly beaten egg white and you brush it across the top of the pie crust. Then you sprinkle a little bit of caster sugar across the top of the crust. Once that's done, your pie is ready to go in the oven. And then you bake it for about 25 minutes. After that 25 minutes, reduce the oven temperature and you continue to bake until the juices are bubbling and the crust is deep golden brown. About 25 to 30 minutes longer. Look at the pie! Okay, so pie's out of the oven. I'm gonna let it cool for about 2 hours. Cutting. Ooh, sounds like a flaky crust. Trying the apple pie.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's good. It's chock full of apples. So like kind of healthy.
Nice.
2 thumbs up!